Alright guys, doing a video today on the Rick Hinderer MP-1. MP standing for Modular Platform, referencing the backspacer, which we'll talk about. This is a review that's been a long time in the works. I've owned this knife for a few months now. It's been part of my regular EDC rotation. You've seen it pop up in some videos with EDC, and I've used it as a size comparison and such, but I've never done a review on it. I've had a lot of requests for it, so I wanted to do that. So let's get the specs and everything out of the way first. Your overall length is 7.75 inches. The closed length of 4.5. Your blade length is 3.25. Blade thickness is 0.165. Your blade steel is S35 VN. All of these have been S35. Sometimes he does different runs, but all of the MP1s have been S35. Stonewashed finish on the lock bar and on the blade. This one has a gray and black G10 scale. They also come in many different colors of G10 scales, as well as a full titanium version. Your clip is your typical Hinderer clip. It's going to be tip up or tip down, right hand carry only on this one. And it is a frame lock. Weighs 5.6 ounces. It is a beefy knife, but it is a perfect size in my opinion. Love it. Love the size. So speaking of size, let's just go ahead and get the size comparison out of the way. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to bring in the Rick Hinderer XM18 3.5 and the Rick Hinderer half track. You can see the size difference of those three knives. Let's move the half track over and bring in a very similar size knife, which is the Grayman Dua. See, the Dua is a titch smaller than the handle, but still very similar. And the Zero Tolerance 808, very similar size knife as well. So you can see it's a medium size knife. It's not really small like the half track. It's not as big as the 3.5 XM. So just to give you a size comparison. Alright, like I said, had this knife for a few months now. Love the design of this one when it first came out. I love the sheep's foot blade. Wanted to give one a try, and was able to handle one at Blade HQ locally to me, and fell in love with it as soon as it hit my hand, because I'm going to go ahead and say it, this is the most ergonomic knife that I've ever held in my hand. Bam! Guys, I've hundreds of knives over the last 5-6 years. This sucker is ridiculous. You get it in your hand and you're like, for me, it fits my hand just absolutely perfectly. This nice, I don't want to call it choils, but we got a little bit of finger choils going on here on the, and with that flipper tab, it just melts in your hand. Again, I have a medium-sized glove that I wear, and you can see I've got a little left over here. If you have large hands, it still should fit your hand pretty well. But for me, it locks in right here under that pinky right here, and then right there at the flipper tab with my index finger. And man, I have never felt a knife that fit my hand better than this one. I'm saying a lot. So that was one of the first things that I loved about it. I'm like, man, the ergonomics are just absolutely killer. Rick Hinderer designs are been some of my favorites for a long time. A lot of the ZTs that I've had a few XMs. I love the 392 series. You know, this one kind of came out with this idea that you could, there's a little small set screw in here, and you can actually remove this backspacer and replace it. Now it comes with like just a lanyard attachment. He's got like a bottle opener and a couple other attachments. I was really never very interested in those things, and that's why it kind of turned me off at first for this knife. Once I got to handle one, I was like, well, I don't need to change out the backspacer and just leave it how it is. And it's got some nice jimping here on the titanium there, and I was like, I'll just leave it how it is. So I don't know that the modular backspacer has taken off as much maybe as Rick had anticipated or wanted it to. But he made an exceptional knife in the MP1 regardless. Love the sheep's foot style blade. S35 is one of my favorite steels. The stonewashing is absolutely great on this one. Nice heavy stonewash. This knife has seen a lot of use. It's still got a very good edge on it. Like I said, been carried and used as part of my regular EDC. In fact, what is on the tip? Ew, there's something gross on there. There you go. There's a sign of a used knife. So, like I said, one of my most carried knives. The design of this knife, or let's talk about the fit and finish before we get into the design. Perfect centering, as you can see here. The flipping action is actually quite good. It's on Teflon washers. People will be like, Teflon washers, you should have bearings. I've come to the conclusion that bearings are a titch overrated. They're not necessary on every knife. The MP-1 being a good example of if you can dial in that detent, and it'll flip just nice, and it has that nice smooth washer feeling. You can also use the thumb stud to deploy on this one, but I prefer the flipper, and it flips fantastic. There's no wrist. You saw that again. Let's do it again. Simply just push button. You can light switch it. Doesn't flip as good a light switch, definitely better as push button, but it's got such a nice smooth feeling to it. Lock disengagement is super smooth. There's no lock bar insert on this knife. It is not needed. If you carbidize or carbodize, or there's many different ways to say it, the lock face, it's not necessary. And Chris Reeve has been doing that for a long time. Hinderer has been doing it for a long time. So you see all these new flippers, and here's the ZT808 for a good example. It's on bearings. It's got the steel lock bar insert. You got this ugly screw. I've never been a fan of that. I get the idea behind the steel lock bar insert. Steel on steel, no stick, and you're going to have better wear. I've been hearing a lot, though, of people having to replace those lock bar inserts. So maybe that's, a negative. Back to the MP-1. Great flipping action, guys. I mean, Hinderers have a bad rap, and they did for a long time, having a very weak detent. I think Rick has really tuned these in, so they flip excellent. I like the gray black G10. They haven't come out with any replacement scales yet. They will, though, which is nice, like the XMs. You can kind of, one of the best things about Hinderers is how much you can customize. Hence my XM18 Spanto, or Spantoon, this one even flips even better, has some copper, has a copper liner, got a micarta scale, that's black micarta, not G10, and copper clip and copper. Just lots of copper, so you can customize. I'm excited for the MP-1 stuff to come out, because of all the Hinderers, this is my favorite size and design. Great jimping up here on the top, typical Hinderer jimping. As you can see here, it looks almost identical to the XM18, and the half track actually has completely different jimping, but the XM18 and MP-1 are very, very similar as far as the jimping is concerned. So really functional, not overly aggressive. It catches your thumb, but it doesn't tear it up. There is no choil. This is not a finger choil. This is more of a sharpening choil than anything. You can barely fit your finger in there, but it's definitely designed more for sharpening. So, like I said, I've been using this knife for a few months, and you wouldn't even know. The stonewashing so well done hides any kind of wear or marks on this thing. I mean, this thing could probably pass as new. Minus the edge being stropped quite a few times. Never sharpened it, but I have stropped it. So, ergonomics, great flipping action, great design. I don't really care much about the modular backspacer, but that is an option, which is pretty cool. Price point on this guy is $425. It's the same as every Hinderer knife. One thing I'm kind of perplexed by is this. These three knives all cost the same. Minus this one has some extras, but this is a larger 20 CV steel, smaller S35, costs the same. Don't get that. Feel like that should be less expensive. Feel like this should be less expensive than this. Should kind of go up from there, but whatever. That's his pricing model, and the nice thing is Hinderers have come down in price so much that they're affordable, and you can find them on the secondary market. Man, I've seen some go as low as like in the twos, which blows my mind. High twos for a 3-inch XM18. I just saw recently for sale. I about lost it. So it's held up extremely well for EDC. It's not terribly too thick in the pocket. It's such a nice compact size, medium-sized knife that, and again, you get it in your hand and you're gonna go, whoa, those are ergonomics. So if you're on the fence and you want to buy a Hinderer and you can't decide which one to buy, I would buy the MP-1. I like the half track a lot. I like small knives. It's going to be too small for a lot of people. I like that one quite a bit, and I like the XM18. That gets a lot of pocket time also. But the MP-1 is my favorite of the three. It's kind of the mid-size knife there. They also have the new Jurassic, which I haven't checked out, but I'm not a huge fan of the handle design on that one. So overall, I would highly recommend the Hinderer MP-1 as an EDC knife. Is it expensive? Yes, it's made in the U.S. It's made in limited numbers. It's a Hinderer design. I mean, a few years ago, people were paying $700-800 for Hinderers, so I think the price on this, even new, was pretty reasonable. The full titanium ones are going to run you quite a bit more, closer to $7. I would recommend just getting a G10 model. I like the G10. This gray and black's really attractive and handsome. It's got a nice design to it. It's not just plain, you know, like Spyderco G10 or anything. It's got some style to it. It goes well with the design. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the design of the knife. I think it's awesome. It's not a huge departure from the other Hinderers, like the XM. Well, I mean, this came out before the half track, I believe, or right around the same time anyway. It's not, I mean, you can see the size-wise, it's not much smaller. Minus this lanyard hole, you can see if you take that out, it is quite a bit smaller in the hand. But the sheep's foot blade was a new thing. You done a Warncliffe on this. Many different blade styles. Never really done a sheep's foot. I love the sheep's foot blade for EDC tasks. It's great. So it's a little bit of a departure from the normal Hinderer stuff, but as you can see when you look at these, this has got the working finish on it. I like this milling here on the titanium. I thought that was a nice touch there. The clips are exactly the same. I could swap these clips over. I could swap the clip over from my half track, which actually would look pretty cool in the blue. So lots of customization. You can still do the lock bar sensors. Lock bar sensor? My lock bar stabilizer. You can do the filler tabs. They're all the same. The hardware is different. Actually, it looks to be the same too, but I think it's a different size, so I don't think these are interchangeable as far as hardware is concerned. So, but overall, as an EDC knife, as a tactical folder, I don't know. It could. Maybe not the best blade shape. It's actually got a. What am I doing there? All over the place. It's actually got a pretty strong tip, as you can see here, and it has a nice. This blade shape. I don't have it on me. Reminds me of the Chris Reeve. I mean, it's a sheep's foot, but it really reminds me of the Insingo blade on a Sabenza, which is one of my favorite. So it's a good slicer. It's good, just a good overall EDC knife. Could be used for food prep. Could be used for first responders. That's one of the things that Rick's really markets his knives to. Military, first responder. Overall, just a fantastic offering from Hinderer. One of my favorite of his designs yet. If not, actually, I'm going to go out and say it. It is my favorite design, even over the 392 Clips style, even over the XM and the half track. It's my favorite Hinderer. And the main reason why is it's got a good action, and man, it's so comfortable in the hand. So if you have medium-sized hands like me, I think you'll find it, or even smaller hands, I think you'll find it to be really comfortable. Guys with large hands, you still got a lot of handle. I think you're going to be all right. I mean, I can choke way back there and still have a good amount. So I think it's a good size for anyone. It's a good, it's a little on the chunky, hefty side, but it is a heavier, overbuilt knife, and that's what a Hinderer is. I mean, you're kind of expecting that. You're not buying a Hinderer knife when you're wanting a really thin, gentleman's folder, or like something like this. Ooh, it just almost came open in my pocket. Almost got my finger there. The Shirogorov Neon Ultralight. You can see it's quite a bit thinner and smaller, but you're not really buying this knife to get this knife. You're looking more for when you're looking at a Hinderer, an overbuilt, beefier folder, and the MP-1 definitely is that. So highly recommended, guys. If you're on the fence, this is the Hinderer I recommend buying. If you like medium sized knives, this is perfect. The flipping action, you can see, is fantastic. Again, on Teflon washers, and it flips great. No lock bar insert, no stick. Super easy to disengage the lock. Nice and centered. I mean, I can't say anything more about this knife. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend it. It's been on my top 5 EDC knives for the last few months, and it's going to stay there. It's not going anywhere. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching this review on the Hinderer MP-1. Any questions or comments, leave them down below, and we'll see you on the next video.